Hi, everyone. So I have a special guest on my show. Her name is Lauren. She's a board certified health coach, and she also writes about accelerated resolution therapy. So welcome to my channel, Lauren.
Hi, Leon. Thanks for having me. Good to be
A-
here.
Absolutely. So today we're going to talk about the mind-body connection and
Mhm.
how that would help us. So can you tell us more about that, Lauren?
So I just kind of wanted to go a little bit about why I got like certified as a health coach. Basically, I've struggled with depression and anxiety for a number of years, and the first things I do are when you go into the office is like you go into talk therapy, you get medication. But I was noticing like I had a lot of symptoms in a lot of other ways. So I was like always chronically fatigued. I had like gut
Mm,
issues and all this,
right.
and so I started getting a little bit more involved into nutrition. And that is a portion of like what I'd like to talk about today about how when we talk about mental health, we have to talk about our whole body and what we're
Right.
putting into our body as well. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. And then also just how we have to address our whole body in healing, basically because, we usually address things from the head up, but
Right.
in a lot of
Yes.
ways, but we have to go a little bit deeper into that. So that's kind of what I want to get into.
I find this to be really interesting. So you have a background in theater, and this got you interested in the mind-body connection. Can you let us know more about that?
Yeah, I mean, for theater, it's really interesting because I feel like, especially, I went to college for theater, and basically, I feel like a lot of times it ends up being like a long therapy session. You witness a lot of vulnerability on stage,
Right.
people like having to access certain parts of themselves for roles, and really having to embody themselves. You meet yourself. You notice a lot of your mental blocks when you get on stage. You really have to, and a lot of this is a lot of physical work. We have to do
Mm,
hours and hours of like making sure you're connected to your body, your breath's connected. And that's the way you access emotions, because if you're really cut off, if you're really stiff, if you're not able to access a lot of that, you're just not going to be able to be as emotionally present with the character. So I think it really is
right.
funny how that really does correlate to mental health as well. I
Oh,
think I've noticed a lot of people in my class actually get involved with what's the word, drama therapy.
that's really fascinating to see that connection between how we express ourselves in the body and our psychology. Thing that you mentioned before about nutrition. So you mentioned that you've been able to change your nutrition around so that it's helpful to you. So what do you notice are the benefits of that?
Yeah, so I've just noticed like once I started cleaning out my nutrition, I consider this a long game. You start making shifts in certain ways. I just started noticing I just feel a lot more connected to my body. I don't think anyone always has 100% days, but at least I can differentiate now. Like, is this a mental thing, or is this something going on with my body that
Right.
is bringing me down, is weighing me down
Mm,
in some way? So I think that's really important. So once you start cleaning that up a little bit, you're able to see these differences. So I personally notice a lot less fatigue. There's a lot less gut health issues. The gut and brain is a huge connection that has really just been discovered, and we talk about a lot.
mm,
So that's been cleaned up a lot.
mm.
And so, yeah, that's kind of like where I started going with that. So I think it's been really important, and I think it's a really great place to start, because our body is our home, and so we have to make sure our home is a safe place to live before we can
Yes.
start, accessing all these other things that need to be healed. We have to make sure we're accessing from a place where it's okay to experience that healing, right? So.
Wonderful. So it's like you're kind of like addressing your body as a home that you live in. It sounds like what you're saying here, the more you clear it out, it's like you have a clear intuition of what may be wrong and how you could address it.
Yeah, I think like once you start really cleaning up certain things, like you recognize. Yeah, I mean the other thing is you start noticing emotionally why you're eating certain foods. Like you'll be like, oh, I'm craving this thing. It's like, am I really craving that, or am I trying to numb something? And usually when you try to numb something, it's something like you use sugar or you use something salty. It's something that's is not that good for you, right? So it kind of is very informative a lot of ways. When you really try to take a mindful approach to what you're eating, you really kind of sit with, why am I eating this? What does it feel like when I chew? Am I present? Am I checked out? So that's really important. And then
Hmm.
the quality of food that you're eating too. I mean, the food is kind of like a conversation in a certain way. So if
Right.
you're just kind
Yeah.
of having this cheap, like easy access to it, you're not going to get a lot from that conversation, right? So.
Right. what would you recommend to people in order to have this greater self-awareness when it comes to food and nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, I would just, if for you, I like to say everyone's different. So, I mean, with exceptions, I mean, I always would say, like, obviously we want to stay away from processed foods, things with a lot of sugar in them. But, at the end of the day, you just you have to sit and say, like, how does this make me feel after it? Do I feel like my energy is dipping? Is it spiking? I mean, maybe you're noticing you're feeling joy when you're eating something, but it's depleted later.
Right.
So it's really important to make sure you're getting like nutrients up front. I can talk more about in a minute, but basically like how to start your day off in a certain way. So you're sustaining like a good level with your blood sugar and you're not like really a slave to that.
Right.
I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like kind of something that you're saying is helpful here is to do a check-in with yourself, kind of like slow things down afterwards, like ask yourself, how am I feeling? Right. So you mentioned about like starting off the day well. So what do you suggest in regards to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have this idea of what breakfast should look like specifically, and I think I like to say if you're gonna start making a mental health switch for breakfast, you start with breakfast because a lot of people will have like orange juice and a bagel, and then and that's like their main meal, or they just won't. And you're setting yourself up for really a really high sugar intake, and then what happens is you crash after that because your body is compensating, trying to like if you have a really low blood sugar at that point. So that's I just say if you start off your day with like a good protein meal, usually whatever it is, like eggs, something the size of your palm, eggs, something high quality protein, breakfast meats, a handful of vegetables, and like a golf ball size of fat. You're going to have a longer sustainable throughout the day, and that's just going to kind of create a really nice balance throughout your day. You're not going to notice any of these like where you are out of control with your emotions and with your body. So this is all kind of like regaining your control, and I think what better way to start that is at the beginning of the day, right? I mean, it's a clean slate. You get to do that. And so I think really taking a look at your breakfast is the first thing you can do there. So
yeah, just like really starting off well, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense because like when I start off the day with like more activity, then the rest of the day I tend to have more energy.
Yeah, exactly.
And I like that concept because you're saying like there's things to change, but when you do change these things, you end up feeling better and you're able to do more. So it's a win all around, right?
Right.
One thing I really appreciate is that you've been just like me. You've been open about your own journey with like depression and anxiety, and you're saying that you use this knowledge of the mind-body connection and nutrition to be able to help you with that. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Well, basically, I don't know how much you want me to get into this, but I was on antidepressants for a very long time too. I started making the correlation that like, what you put into your body is still going to end up like helping out your chemical imbalance if you have one. Because actually a lot of the neurotransmitters are made in the gut. So you really have to start there. People will think like SSRIs or whatever will give you that, will give you like the serotonin or whatever you need, whatever you're on will give you what you need. But you start with the gut is like the most powerful thing you can do. And then it will shape the neurotransmitters that are going to be made there. So that was really important for me. I just knowing that was a little bit more under control. I go back and forth with my depression journey because I think it is a deeper seated thing. Like, I really have been able to just at least create a stable baseline of like, okay, this is a really difficult time. What's going on with me? Is it a chemical thing, or is it like, is there something recurring that I need to readdress again? One of my patterns that's coming up. So it's been good to like basically be able to differentiate that.
Wonderful. Yeah. So it helps to gain that sense of clarity.
Exactly.
Right. One thing you mentioned about like theater is that it can be able to take you down to deep, vulnerable parts of yourself, right? So can you tell me more about that connection between this and what you're telling me here in regards to like the mind-body connection?
Yeah. So in terms of theater, I think one of the biggest things, the biggest people they teach in theater is Stanislavski, which is basically his idea is that you should use like elements of yourself within the role. So if you're embodying, I'm just thinking of a major role in Broadway, like Nina from The Seagull, you're bringing parts of her experience to the role. So it's always like you're kind of playing out you're almost living cathartically through this character. And I think it really helps like very much embody this character through that. And you're telling her story on stage, but it's actually your story. So I think that's really powerful. You're using like, you have this script that is as a voice for you. And I think it's like, yeah, it's very interesting. So.
Wow. Yeah, I think this is pretty interesting because you're talking about like getting down to like when you're acting a part, you're almost like becoming that character, right? And you're getting something that's beyond the mind, because a lot of times when we're trying to help ourselves, we kind of use our mind a lot. So can you tell us more about like that difference?
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about the top down versus bottom up therapy, which is what top down basically just involves what we were just talking about, the just being able to rationalize and analyze things in our brain. And bottom up is more of an approach where you're using your body and you're using what the emotions feel like in your body. You're getting very comfortable with like, ooh, how does this feel? What is the color of this? Stuff that doesn't make rational sense. Like, why would an emotion have a color? Because we can't exactly explain what that is to somebody else.
Right.
The vocal and the top part of our brain is more has been developed at a later point than our body. So we need to connect to this very kind of primal urge of our body. And I guess people, the way they used to do that is they used to dance, they used to sing, they really would get connected to their bodies. And we don't do that for healing anymore. We just say like, why is my brain not doing the thing I want it to do? It's like completely cut off. It's like this, and then there's this. So it's really about like making sure you're kind of getting back into your body, incorporating that. So I like to say nutrition, breath work, theater is another one, art, those are really important parts of healing. So,
There's certainly a lot of research on how positive and effective it is for trauma to be able to get into the body like that.
Bessel van der Kolk, the body keeps the score. He's makes a really big correlation. He was able to say that like people have experienced great growth just for yoga, because you're putting yourself back into your body. Because if you're a lot of traumatized people will be kind of really cut off and truncated from feeling the emotions in their body as a measure of safety. So it really helps to, in a very safe environment, to be able to connect with that again. And I think all of us, have experienced trauma on some level. So it's always about getting back into our body. It's not very encouraged in the society anymore. So
what do you think has caused that shift where we kind of got mostly in our heads?
I have a theory. It's just maybe partly our puritanical like upbringing, like with the society. But I mean, I actually have a quote here, which I think is like, it's kind of really embodiment. It doesn't embody our society anymore, but in many shamanic societies, if you came to a medicine person complaining about being disheartened, dispirited, or depressed, they would ask you one of four questions. When did you stop singing? When did you stop dancing? When did you stop being enchanted by stories? And when did you stop being comforted by the sweet territory of silence? Yeah. And I'm like, no, I don't feel like a lot of people in the Western world like do a lot of those things, like if we're singing, it's usually at a club, or it's not like in a group, or maybe it's at church or something, but we don't give ourselves permission to like do a lot of these things, or we have to think we're good, or we're always worried about being judged. It doesn't occur very often anymore. And I think it has to do with how connected we are with each other and how much we're worried about being judged, but it just isn't something that we grow up doing as much. Right.
In terms of the healing power of doing such things that really connect us with the body, can you tell us like perhaps like something from your life or someone that that has like really benefited from this?
Yeah. So strangely, I signed up for a yoga class, and I was going in thinking I was going to be doing a yoga class. And somehow I entered this space where they were doing something else, where we were doing some sort of thing for the new year, and they pulled out some sort of like tarot cards and all that. But the biggest part of what we were doing within that journey is we were just on blindfold and dancing for about an hour or so. And I was like, oh man, I'm embarrassed. I'm like, everyone's blindfolded though. And I really realized like what a cathartic experience that was. I was, I was really able to connect with my body. There was that element of judgment that was taken away because everyone was blindfolded. So I thought it was such a weird experience because it wasn't something I had signed up for, but it was almost like kismet that I just happened to sign up for that by accident. And it I felt on a deep level. I'm like, wow, like just me being able to dance and like feel the music like this. I felt like something had like moved and shifted in me. So I thought that was it was pretty special that day. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wow. Can you tell us like perhaps what occurred to you like mentally or in terms of your well-being that you felt like that has made a difference for you?
Yeah. I think there's just a matter of like, wow, there was just a deep feeling of self-acceptance. Yeah. And the fact that it's, you start really loosening up after a while. So you start really kind of just connecting things. I was just able to like move through certain things and start crying. And I feel like, yeah, a lot of times we are cut off from that feeling of being able to just cry and just let things go. And it's just like, whenever you're crying, I feel like there's like years of tension and pain just being stripped away. So that was I just remember like really being able to cry and experience that. Yeah. So,
yeah. Modalities that have to do with healing the body could be so helpful in this regards, because imagine like over time, people have built a lot of stuff up. And then when you go to something like that, just amazing how healing that can be.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's like the same way you take small steps to give yourself permission, like you start off with breakfast, you switch something, but just like, what would it be like if you explored a dance class or something? Like, you don't have to dive head on into this thing, but just like give yourself the space to like, maybe just explore one of these things, like alone in your room or, anytime you're able to just kind of put yourself back into your body a little bit. What would that look like?
Wonderful. Yeah. So there's all these things that you could do to get into it. And I remember like you mentioning before, you might have a self that you want to work towards, like a future self, right? And we might be kind of intimidated by that, but you're saying like there's steps that we could take in order to get there. Can you let us know more about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the times, some people have trouble setting like New Year's resolutions, or they have this picture of themselves in the future, and they see them and they look at that and they're like, oh, I feel sad because it's so far away. But I think when we do anything, we just have to start taking really small steps. And there's a gap in between this person and this person, and the thing is, whenever you start just doing the very, very small minimum, you're making a vote towards this person over here. So you're taking that very, very small step. So there's no need to like look at that person and feel bad. It's more of just like, wow, okay, that's a destination, but I have to travel this path, and it has to be little by little, basically. Excellent. Yeah. So I would say, what is the smallest step? What's the next smallest step you can take? I'm on Instagram at Lauren.Faylor. My last name is Faylor. I'm sure I'll be listing somewhere.
So Lauren, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you for being on my channel.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Leon. This is great. Appreciate it.